Welcome back to Trojans Live. The Women's Spotlight is brought to you by Sprouts Farmers Market. Open 7 days a week. Visit your neighborhood Sprouts for good-for-you groceries and great prices on the freshest produce. Spotlight at home this week is on USC Women's Volleyball. They have a couple of matches at the Galen Center Friday night against Utah, and then on Sunday against Colorado. It's a 1 o'clock start on Sunday, and that is their pink match. So the first 300 fans in attendance will receive pink socks. They're coming off a sweep of Oregon State in a dramatic 5-set win at UCLA. So women's volleyball
there we go.
On the rise.
No Max Brown women's volleyball breakdown?
I was looking forward to this guest.
Next week we will have the head coach. We expect to have the head coach, Brad Keller, on Trojans Live, so Max can save all his volleyball takes for that.
Got him ready.
I'm interested in some of you guys' football takes, if you don't mind. We were like, we would like a game where we have something to talk about. So they gave us a game that gave us a few things to talk about. Max, I heard all of Sean's takes on Saturday night during the broadcast. So what was your takeaway watching it and watching the film?
Yeah, I couldn't help but walk away feeling like I feel like Lincoln's glad they had that kind of test, and he definitely confirmed that tonight, because going into the season, my concern with this schedule was that it's very backloaded, and there was a real scenario where we went through the first 6 weeks, 5 weeks of the season and did not have a test, and that's great to get wins, but I don't think that's great for building a team. And I think in a weird way, this punch in the mouth was great. And I was glad it happened at Arizona State and not on the road at Colorado, where that snowball effect could have gone a different way. So I thought it, definitely things to clean up, but you see the explosiveness still, you see the talent still, and I think this is a byproduct of, like Lincoln said, being USC and going on the road to a team that's the last time they're going to play USC.
And it's funny, one thing that he was sort of alluding to too, which I think that in the analytics era gets really lost, is that the games are played by human beings. Yep. And it doesn't matter what the point spread is or what the statistical matchup is. Like, you still have to play to your best. And the human beings that were coming off the loss and were way up for the game at home in a sold-out place, and this could make our whole season, they were up for it. And it just felt at times, like, as you mentioned, the way the schedule is loaded, it's hard to blow out six teams in a row. The human condition doesn't necessarily let you just like hammer people week in and week out that you're better than. It just sort of felt like one of these was going to happen in the beginning of the season. So I'm not like stunned. I also don't, Sean, necessarily think it's indicative of everything the rest of the season. I would be stunned if we're sitting at the end of the season going, that Arizona State game, that was indicative of but we won't even be talking about it.
Yeah, no, I give credit to Arizona State, Coach Dillingham. They took one on the chin, like I said about with Colorado. Is you take one like that, and then he had a week to kind of figure out, okay, what am I going to do? Let's reset. We got a quarterback. He has this skill set. We don't have an offensive line. Let's get the ball to the outside. Try to attack him from the outside. Don't let him rush. And then when they started to get behind, you see where they had to drop back, and that's where I thought the defense was able to get home. But credit their good game plan. But I also think like those kind of games like that you find out who your guys. Lincoln Riley found out about his guys. He found out about his rush ends. Definitely, he found out about Brendan Rice. Maybe he's the number one. Or you just kind of in those moments, that's who you turn to. All right, who are my guys where I'm going to count on? That rotation stuff is nice, but when it's time, yeah. when we were in the fourth quarter up by one score, who's playing right now?
Yeah, Lincoln Riley also said after the game that, as good as some of the stats were, and he mentioned 9 yards per play, and JJ mentioned in our post-game 500, plus yards of offense. Those are pretty actually eye-popping stats. But he did mention, as a head coach, as a play caller, he does sort of go by the feel of the game, and it felt like a grind. I thought in particular, Max, that Arizona State was the first team this season in a while that had done a really nice job in the scramble situations. They got beat late finally on the second Brendan Rice touchdown in a scramble situation, but they could have had a couple picks in scramble spots that Coach alluded to, and just in general, Caleb wasn't out there sort of freewheeling. It was hard-earned yards throughout the game, even though they got a lot of yards.
Yeah, and I think some of that speaks to explosive plays and the importance of that just on any team throughout the game. And the flip side's also true, where there were some layups that Caleb had that they're incomplete passes, and you kind of survive in advance if you're Arizona State. And I'm sure teams look at that film saying, to your point, we got to be great in the scramble drills, but two, hey, maybe we don't be fearful of these receivers and take our chances on the outside and in man coverage, and say maybe we strike it right one of these nights where they're not exactly on all their stuff, Caleb and his receivers, and we're able to survive on the outside. Like, I could see a defensive coordinator taking that mindset moving forward, facing this USC offense.
Marshawn Lloyd is a baller.
Yeah.
That's what I took away from that game. From these last two games, I mean, there's not enough touches this guy can get. And, I know we like to throw the ball and get it spread around. And I know part of that is that's why this running game is successful as it is, because teams are so wary of what we have in those
I was
weapons.
going to say, Caleb's a baller.
Yeah, of course.
And wouldn't any opponent rather
Of course.
the ball not be in his hands?
If you're
And
defensively, you have to stop someone first. You're focused on Caleb, but Marshawn Lloyd, man, I can't get enough touches for that kid because he's special. He moves different. You can see just as a defender how hard it is to tackle that guy.
there's a lot of fan anxiety about the defense, and Coach mentioned the tackling and was very clear with us post game, and reiterated it here. With that said, when the game felt tight, I thought that's when they were at their best. You know, they clearly had a conversation at halftime because they made many more plays in the second half. All the sacks were in the second half, the turnovers. But there were like 2 or 3 possessions there where the offense sputtered and was like, hey, Arizona State, you got the ball and a chance to take the lead. And then who knows if they had done that, if they had gotten over that hump, what that crowd would have been like, what that hole would have turned into. And the defense didn't let that happen. They weren't perfect. You know, the tackling is certainly something that needs to be addressed. But they kind of made the plays when they needed to, when the offense wasn't quite putting the finishing touches on that game.
Yeah, for sure. I thought the turnovers were huge in the game. Obviously, think about Kalen Bullock's interception, the sack caused fumble from Solomon Byrd. But there were some drives that were concerning. I thought the big play. Your offense sent you up, inside, and you hope your defense can come out and sudden change, and they weren't able to do it. Had a bust. They score early. Okay, that one's on the offense, and then you don't tackle Scatabo on the sideline.
He played a heck of a game.
He breaks 2 tackles. Okay, those 2 plays, you give those up. But the drives that were concerning is when they pushed it down the field a little bit, and they felt comfortable in those 2 drives where they scored. So if I'm a critic of this defense, it was really those 2 drives, Max, that were concerning as opposed to the actual score of 28, I think.
Yeah, and we challenged Kalen Bullock. Sua did, at least last time I was on the pregame show with you guys. And so for him to show up in that playmaker role like we thought he'd be, I thought that was a great sign. I was obviously watching the game on my couch, and it was just – I had the sense when they did a shot like late in the third quarter on Mason Cobb when the game was still close. And I just had the feeling like that's the first time he's been in a USC uniform where it probably hasn't felt like scrimmage energy. We're like, oh, it's my series, and then I'm going to be out the next time. Like, no, he's in there to be the leader, to get a stop. And I just have a feeling that we walk away from that game with a defense that's much more bonded after that challenge. And hopefully they take that over into a elite passing attack in Boulder.
Yeah, we'll get to that next. Don't wait until game time to plan for retirement. Open your free iTrust Capital account today and get your crypto IRA. iTrust Capital is the official cryptocurrency platform of the USC Trojans. And if you want the inside scoop on this game and all things Trojans, be sure to sign up for the 3 Torches presented by Smart & Final. It's a free newsletter that'll hit your email inbox 3 times a week with game info, player insights, and more. Go to usctrojans.com/3torches and sign up. We will preview that Boulder game next on Trojans Live. Check out USC versus Colorado. If you can get a ticket, it's going to be a sellout. It's probably been a sellout for weeks. It's the game that everyone's watching. So I don't think the Trojans, despite the start time, altitude, all the other nonsense we talk about, will have any issues tuning it up for this one.
Yeah, hard to not get your engines revving for this one. I know that might have been their excuse last week. We're kind of we're ho-hum into the Arizona State game, who just got shut out for Fresno State. There's no excuse this weekend, especially with an opponent who, like I said, just took one on the chin. They just got popped. They're going to have a heck of a week of practice with Coach Prime and be ready to go at home, all white jersey. It's going to be and I'm sure this team is focused on that right now.
Yeah, I feel like for me, obviously, if we win all our games, we're going to be just fine from a CFP conversation and a conference championship conversation. But it feels like all those teams in the top 10 around us have had their national moment so far this season, and we haven't. I know we've had, the Stanford game, which was good, but ASU was late at night, and obviously everyone knows about Caleb and knows about Lincoln, but it feels like this is the opportunity, similar to what Oregon had last week, exactly, is like that's Oregon's coming out party, and now everyone across the country is talking about how Oregon's a legitimate contender. It feels like this is the opportunity, if we go in there and take care of business, for now us to get back in that conversation, so to speak.
Well, the other thing is what I said from the start that I ultimately think will define this season are these incredible quarterback battles and showdowns that are coming, and they just hadn't come yet. There was 4 weeks that Drew Pine played pretty well this week, but it starts now. And even with Colorado and Arizona, maybe not the same as some of these other teams, but good at the quarterback spot. This secondary is going to get tested. Shedeur Sanders is a player. Jaden Delora next week is a player, and on we go. And so while the secondary hasn't necessarily been the story for USC, I do think they sort of are going forward, and obviously the pass rush plays a major role in that, but this will be a huge test for them.
Yeah, quarterback play. Shedeur Sanders is a real deal back there. He can set up and throw it and wing it, whereas Drew Pine, not the same kind of quarterback. We didn't have to really worry about him pressing the field. So I think, the game plan for Colorado might be a similar one. They saw where Drew Pine could get the ball out, not wait, because their offensive line, Colorado, has really struggled. So our front should get there. But I think if he makes quick decisions, that's where you put the cornerbacks in tough parts where they got to be tighter and they got to be more succinct than they have been, I think, in previous games.
The offensive line for Colorado is a struggle. They got absolutely exposed in Eugene last week. I'm sure it's the biggest concern for Deion. And I think for Alex Grinch, he'll have a decision on his hands in that, does he want to just trust the front four and get after him and play straight up and kind of have a mindset of, hey, Shedeur, just you got to beat us? Or are we going to see, which we have seen from Alex Grinch over the past couple of years, of dialing up exotic pressures and bringing different things? And that's great when they get home, but it's also a recipe for if Shedeur's on the right page at night, you can get the ball out quickly and find open receivers. So interested to see what Alex Grinch does, but a guy like Jamil Muhammad, we were talking about Romello Height, those are the guys that should be licking their chops going into this game.
Yeah, I thought watching that Oregon-Colorado game that on the other side of the football, Oregon got the ball out very quickly. Bucky Irving ran very hard and was breaking a lot of tackles. But Bo Nix, his stats, he was so accurate because, he was just getting it on the perimeter, and they were having so much success.
Yeah, and that's why it's exciting to have a back now that's a legitimate passing threat. But I think there's that. There's all the slot receivers we have. I could see Lincoln doing some creative stuff in the quick pass game this week.
Yeah, and Bo Nix took advantage with his legs as well. I thought Caleb might be able to press that issue a little bit more this week in that zone read game and take off on a couple.
I didn't ask Coach about the altitude because I feel like coaches get bored of that question. But I'll ask you guys as former players: did it ever bother you?
It takes a couple hours to get used to it. I think I would get like a headache and drink a Gatorade, and then
But in the game, you didn't feel like you had less oxygen.
No, not a thing you're worried about. I was always sucking wind as a big fella. Third play of the game, Coach.
I wasn't running much either, so I'm with you there. Never an issue for me. Colorado was one of the coldest games I've ever played in college. That in
Saturday.
Pullman, so good thing we got him in September. That'll be nice.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely beautiful on Saturday. Early start, I think is interesting. USC experienced it a couple years ago, but it was during that COVID season, so it was without fans. But that season opener at the Coliseum was actually at 9 a.m. But 10 a.m., fun for us old guys. I'll be ready to go. And as Max said, it's the first spotlight game really for USC, and I would expect the TV ratings to reflect that and the atmosphere to reflect that. And then, we sort of go from here, guys. This is just laid out, and I think there's a lot of whoa, it's going to be hard to go 12-0 as you said with this schedule, but you know what, maybe you don't have to go 12-0 because the schedule is so good. This is what it's all about. Certainly as a fan, I think you'd rather play games where they're exciting and fun against really good teams instead of just beating a bunch of people up.
For sure. We went into the last game kind of like, oh, well, here we go, Arizona State. Let's see what this is. And it turned into a much more exciting game than we thought. But it's just not as – it doesn't seem as fun as a player, as a coach when you're going to these games that don't – now, when these games mean something and it's early in the morning and your energy's way up, this is not going to be – this is going to be a ton of fun just for me as just calling the game. I can't imagine being a player in this game, primetime game, getting up early, getting the juices going. It's going to be beautiful. This is the kind of stuff you play college football and football in general for.
This USC offense has been elite to start games, first possessions, getting 7 points. Keep an eye on that on this game because I think it's important to start fast, put the pressure on Colorado. If Colorado puts the pressure on us and the crowd starts getting involved, they start getting some confidence back home, we might have ourselves a ball game.
Trojans Live is sponsored by Pechanga Resort Casino, proud partner of USC football. We're going to wrap it up with our over-under next. Final segment of Trojans Live on a Monday, the birthday, a holiday here. It's the official birthday of Gia Lara as our producer. Hi, Gia.
Yeah,
can we get a pan over?
birthday.
Gia loves being on camera.
Let's go.
Whenever possible. Let's just fire that thing over so Gia can wave to the crowd. Oh, no, too slow. Too slow on the pan. We do have to get to our over-under presented by Pechanga Resort Casino, proud partner of USC Athletics. You guys mentioned it. Colorado has given up 23 sacks. That is the second most in the nation. USC has 16 sacks. That is the third most in the nation. So USC strength against perceived weakness for Colorado. Over under 4.5 sacks that USC has on Saturday. USC's defense.
4.5 seems low to me. I'm going to go
Well, the way I did it, Sean, is I did the math, and they've had 16 sacks in 4 games, so that's how many sacks per game?
That's 4.
There you go. So I went a tick up,
All right.
Ooh, there you go. A little tick up.
from the average.
Go for it.
You go first.
I'm going.
45 seconds, guys.
I'm going under. I just think there's so much chatter around the sacks that they've taken that
Game plan will not let. no.
Get the ball out.
Get the ball out. There you go.
I'll go over then, just to make it fun. What about you, Jordan?
I'm going to go over. I mean, I do think that Sanders does hold the ball too, which I think is part of what they put. He's doing a lot for them in the games that I've watched, and he's been fantastic. And I think that he sort of has that ability. I mean, Caleb takes some sacks that. Even though he's so mobile, he takes them because he trusts himself to hold the ball. And if you take a couple sacks, it's worth it for the playmaking that comes along with it. Well, thank you to everyone involved tonight. Trojans Live is a production of USC Sports Properties and Playfly Sports. Drew DeHart, Rick Cutler, our team behind the scenes, and the aforementioned GLRs as well. Thanks to our crew. Follow us on YouTube, and we will see you early on Saturday. Fight on.